Flames of Bedlam. Written by Aaron Sojourner. Narrated by Aaron Sojourner. A dragon fantasy story from the time before. He was born into a world that taught him the rage of war, subjugation, and suffering. Driven by misery and grief, he embraced the Flames of Bedlam and recreated himself as the first dragon. The world hailed him as Bahamut, the Dragon King. They trembled under the vengeance of a monster they created. But as water calms the flame, another appears, determined to turn a bestial tyrant into a true king. Introduction. Over the many ages I've existed, I've been known by several names. The King of Dragons, the First Dragon, the High Destroyer, the Terror Flame. I am Bahamut. You've probably heard of me. Yes? Very good. You do have some potential then. I cannot claim to have coined the term dragon, but I can claim to have brought dragons as we know them into this world. But perhaps you don't know that despite my mighty stature now, I was not always the King of Dragons. Oh no. In fact, there was a time when I knew nothing of what I was, nothing of dragons, and nothing of my people who could become, were destined to become, these massive, mythical creatures. My previous life started in slavery and misery. I was born into a once proud clan who was forced into servitude as soldier slaves to a race of beings we called the invaders. We didn't know where the invaders came from or what they wanted. We only knew subjugation, as we were forced to fight for them against our will. Until the day I found a way out, I escaped. Somehow, as broken and wretched a creature as I was summoned, called to a place of great power, the Glade. There, I connected with the form that slept dormant within me. I embraced the Flames of Bedlam. I became the first true dragon. Then, burning with hate and chaos, I returned to the homestead of my once captors. I reveled in my power as I scorched the invader city and leveled the central point of their civilization. Don't look at me that way. They had it coming. Once I'd had my fill of destruction, I found others like me, people of my clan who also had the innate power to change forms. I brought them back to the Glade and gifted them with the power of dragons. They were to be my army against the remaining invaders, only it didn't work out the way I thought it would. They were dragons, creatures like myself, made of grief and hate. They were also tempered by chaos. I sent them to destroy, and they destroyed. The chaos within us grew as we consumed. We tipped the balance of the world. The nations around us crumbled as we rose to loom over the cities of graves. It all felt masterful as we scratched that primal itch. But it was a spiral into our own destruction as we fed the Flames of Bedlam in a vicious cycle. The world may have cracked under our weight in time. Everything I sought to control may have turned to dust. We came so close to nothingness, though we were so powerful. My destructive rampage lasted for about a year after my first transformation. In the end, I must grudgingly admit that it was the Tidemaker who changed the course of everything. Flashback 1. In a past life. Time, a year ago. Location, the invader stronghold. This will probably sound vain, but when I reflect back on my past life, I don't think about the bloodshed first. Instead, I wonder how I must have looked to the invaders. What did their seemingly omniscient gazes see when they peered down upon my broken body? I was nothing to them. My dark hair was stringy and ragged, pitted with spots that had either fallen out with disease or was ripped away along with the scars of war that crossed my skull. Deep rings darkened my dull eyes. My scabby skin pulled tight over the bone that shaped my hollow face. I was one of their soldier slaves, a thing that had been bred to fight their conquest against my own home world. One of my arms hung limp and useless, a casualty of battle. It happened so long ago that I'd forgotten which fight had claimed it. Only the fact that this was not my blade arm kept me alive. No, my blade arm was still knotted with strong muscle, strong enough to swing a weapon for them, and that's all that mattered. I was born into the world with no name. Like all of our children, I had nothing but an identifier that was burned into the base of my neck under my left ear. In my younger days, I tried to see it in reflections of my image, but their symbols made no sense to me. The invaders had a language of their own and only spoke ours when absolutely required. As I grew older and more broken, seeing my own face disgusted me. I stopped looking. I stopped trying to make sense of it. All that we knew was war and death. The invaders' battle had raged through generations until my clan no longer remembered what life was like before they came. Mine were a shattered people, identities erased by the crushing weight of subjugation. Still, in the depths of the night, our stories lived on. A tiny light of hope passed from mother to child. I wonder if my mate whispered the tales of our people to my son as my mother had to me. The invaders didn't appear to understand family. Or maybe they did, but they didn't believe we should have that social luxury. We, the creatures crushed within the steel fist of mechanical tyrants. We were given mates, but not for emotional purposes. Our lifespans were short due to our living conditions and the fact that we were fodder on the battlefield. So our women were guarded and protected in large dome living quarters located near the cities. The soldier slaves who survived long enough were allowed to create offspring. The invaders had to replace the ones who died, after all. Extraordinary soldier slaves were sometimes rewarded and allowed to choose their own mate. I suppose that's why I felt a connection with mine. I was allowed to choose her. She was a creature of grace and beauty, despite the world she was brought into. I had so little time with her, but I knew that I had chosen well. I don't know much about our child, for I was rarely allowed to visit, but the last time I saw him, he seemed to be thriving, so much like his mother. One day, the adversary raided the city outskirts, destroying their living quarters. They both died in that strike. The adversary. I knew nothing about them, except that the invaders sent us to die to their weapons. They were strong and well advanced. They were, like my people, natives of the world. They fought to defend it from the invaders, but they cared nothing about who they hurt. The adversary might have won that war, too, if they hadn't burned the living quarters that day, if they hadn't taken the lives of my family. It's so sentimental. I'd like to say their death wasn't the reason for my rage, but I'll be candid here. After I learned my family was gone, I swore I would have my vengeance on them, both the invaders and the adversary. Flashback 2. Chasing a Legend. Time, a year ago. Location, the invader stronghold and the forest. Never place your hope in a fairy tale. Remember the stories I mentioned before, the ones from my childhood? I didn't know if they were true or fabricated by a broken people who were desperate to hold on to any lingering shred of dignity they could, even if that meant they crafted that dignity of pure imagination. People are such interesting creatures. So, what did these legends of my ancestors say? Because I find your facial expressions so amusing, I will tell you. We were once a clan of beasts. Legends told how my cunning ancestors tricked creature spirits and forced them to agree to a pact. From then on, these spirits were to grant the people of our clan with great power. It's said that when a creature spirit finds a kindred soul, that person is guided by the spirit and takes on a new form. Perhaps that form varies depending on the spirit and the person. I'm not fully certain. The stories are pretty fuzzy when it comes to the details. Our people had heroes. They mastered their new bestial forms and defended the clan with strength and honor. Our people had loss. Those who failed to master the beast. Those who were consumed by the Flames of Bedlam. They were doomed to walk the world as mindless monsters. In the stories, there was nothing more horrifying. But those were only stories. I think I've lived through real things far more terrible than that, like the loss of my mate and child. It was only by fluke that I discovered they were dead. Naturally, the invaders didn't think us worthy to inform us. They were probably nursing the wound of losing so many of the next generation of their soldier slaves. How did I find out? Well, it started the day my troop had a particularly awful run-in with the adversary. We lost many of our number. While I never went out of my way to make connections or any semblance of friendship with others like myself, since that was heavily discouraged, I felt this particular sacrifice deeply. It was as if the invaders were becoming more and more desperate to destroy the natives of my world who continued to evade their mastery. They threw troop after troop of their slave warriors to death against the technology and might of the adversary. In turn, the adversary cut us all down, either uncaring or unaware. Usually, after defeat, the soldier slaves were left to lick our own wounds with some medical aid offered. But this time, the loss was so great, the few of us who did survive were rushed back to the medical unit near the city. It may have been the first time I'd ever been treated for a battle wound. It was there that I learned this medical site was built over the ruins of the residential ward that had once housed my mate and child. I learned that it was destroyed and that they were dead. This is where my story really begins. I must have seemed completely and utterly mad. I'm sure in the past, invaders had put down the random soldier slave who finally snapped. Given what we were living with, that couldn't have been too uncommon. But what was uncommon was that we were in a medical ward, not in our military compound, which was highly secure against anything like what I was about to do. That was the only reason I got as far as I did. Maybe I should have felt a little remorse for taking down the healers in my escape. I tried to make it fast and painless. After all, they may have been the very few invaders who held a speck of compassion for other living creatures. You do have to care about something to heal it, don't you? Don't answer that question. I can only imagine the hysteria I caused as I rampaged to my desertion. I half expected to be shot down right there, but it didn't happen. My own people watched, horrified, as I did the thing they couldn't even dream of doing. I left them alive, but anything else that got in my way met its end on my blade. Finally, when the crimson streams of my making parted, I had my freedom. Freedom is not easy when you are hunted by an invading force that can disintegrate you as soon as look at you. I'd like to say that I had everything figured out, planned to perfection. I didn't. I didn't even know what I was capable of until that moment. Driven by grief, I'd become less than an animal. Perhaps this was more true to myself, and I didn't know it until then. As I tasted freedom for the first time, I felt as if I bore the pain and suffering of all my people combined. I couldn't revel in the glory of the moment. I could only limp up the steep hillside, taking cover in the massive forest that loomed outside the city. Now that I had a choice in where I was going, I had no idea where to go. Surely, all roads led to death. That first night, I remember collapsing in exhaustion, hidden among the mud and the reeds of the forest swamp. I slept a deep, troubled sleep. I rarely dreamed in my previous life, but that night I did. In my dreams, I heard the call of the creature spirits. The same spirits that my ancestors bonded with to become the beasts of this world. I'll never know if this dream was a gifted vision or an illusion created by a grief-broken mind. When I woke, I had an unexpected new purpose. I had to find these creature spirits, and once I found them, I knew what I had to do. Flashback 3, Spirit Home. Time, a year ago. Location, the forest and the glade. These days were full of haze and dreams. My memories still skim past the time as if it didn't exist. I only had one focus, one purpose. I had to answer the spirit's call. It's surprising that the invaders didn't track me down. Maybe they had bigger issues to deal with. Or maybe they thought a lone soldier slave lost in an unknown, hostile world wouldn't live very long anyway. That was their folly. They should have tried. They should have hunted me before I found my destination. They didn't like what I became by the time I returned. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I was nothing on my own, nothing but a broken body and an anguished mind. Maybe it was madness that materialized the spirits that I thought called me. I was so certain I was being led somewhere important. Then, finally, I arrived. The mountains loomed closer each day I stumbled forward. The forest began to sway along the sloped hillsides. I felt the altitudes rising. It was a slow rise, but I saw how the tops of the trees were now blanketed in cloud-like fog. It felt somehow safe, like a protective layer hiding me from the steep cliffs that rose above into misted obscurity. Then there were lights. Strange, but natural lights that drew energy from the land and the forest around them. I approached one to investigate. It was the first time I'd seen a real crystal. Not one of those fake crafted ones that the crystal masters of today are so proud of. Those don't hold a candle to the true crystals of the wild lands. Staring into the light of the stone, I felt the first ripple of pure wonder. I'd not known something so beautiful and alluring existed. I might have even been tempted to give up right there, give myself to this light and expire. Except that my vision told me this was just one tiny part of the whole. Ahead, multicolored light bloomed in nooks between leaves of the trees. There were more crystals, so many more, a whole glade of them. The peaceful pulse of the planet was their heartbeat. It drew me, it welcomed me. I wanted the crystals, their power. I'd never felt such a deep desire. But when I reached out to touch one, a voice stopped me. "You have come." I turned my attention, torn from the song of the crystals. Here was something I longed for, much, much more. "I am so happy." I was surprised that my spirit creature was female, truly did sound happy. I couldn't understand the feeling of pure joy the spirit's light bathed me in. It was warm, so warm. For the first time, I knew what comfort felt like. "You are?" I prompted, unsure of what to call her. "I am Twis," she replied. Twis. It was a word in a language I'd never heard before. The language of the spirits, perhaps. However, when she spoke it, the word's meaning transposed upon the strange language. The word meant she was my guide, just like the legend spoke. She was gentle. If there's nothing else I can remember of Twiz, it was that she was so very gentle. She was everything that the world had never shown me before, the opposite of the thing that I'd been shaped into. Her light was soft and pure. I should have basked in that light. I should have welcomed it the way it welcomed me. I could sense her joy, though I couldn't understand the emotion. I felt her hope too, as if she saw me as the key to undo all the wrongs of this dark world. She told me that I had come to fulfill what she was made to be. I was her meaning, her purpose, and now she could be more than just another longing spirit. This surprised me, The spirits were so bound to their pact with my people that they would waste away waiting for us to come? Did they only will themselves to become these guides, no more than slaves to a dying clan? Shameful loss for us all. It was then that I realized there were other spirits there. They were hidden amongst the glow of the crystals. So few, but so much potential. Would their people ever come? "What happens to a spirit if their person never comes?" I asked. "It's better not to think about it," she told me. Her answer made me think about it all the more. I didn't know what manner of creature Twiz was. Her light began to take on a form the longer I was in the glade. She appeared to draw power from the crystals and from my presence. She was a beautiful thing to behold. Her own features seemed crystalline, long and slender, almost serpent-like. Yet she was not of the snakes or the belly reptiles that I had seen in my time. She was something different, more majestic. Her wedge-shaped head bore 2 gem-like eyes. A long mane of silk fur sprouted along the length of her back and slender tail. 2 wings unfurled from her shoulders, mastering the air around her with natural ease. As she grew in strength before my eyes, a deep hunger spread through me. "What are you?" She responded with a mysterious glint to her eyes. "I am a test." "What sort of test?" This excited me. I did not back down from a challenge. "I am a balance of the ancient energies of both creation and chaos," Twiz told me, though I could not understand. "I will guide you to find your own balance. Then you will know the strength of your people." Dear, hopeful Twiz. Perhaps she was the one who needed to learn the strength of my people. Flashback 4, Flames of Bedlam. Time, a year ago. Location, the glade. Time passed strangely in the crystal glade. I still have no recollection of how long I spent there, creating my bond with Twiz. Hers was a bond of nurturing care. Mine was one of hunger and desperation. Perhaps she thought that her ways would eventually win out over mine. But though she grew stronger in my presence, so did I in hers. I learned much from her. I discovered that form was fluid. Harnessing a growing understanding of creation's power, I became an artist. I began shaping myself into something beyond the broken-down creature I used to be. I molded my face into one that I wasn't disgusted to look at, one with sharp, handsome features and gleaming eyes of golden flame. My hair darkened and lengthened, becoming full and glorious, the scars that once marred my skull vanishing. I chose to be tall and strong. I mended my shattered arm. My body became healthy and whole. Still, I left the identification mark at the base of my neck behind my left ear. I'll never know exactly why. I was shaping myself into something terrible and dangerous, and yet Twiz did not see. She could not see beyond her hope and pity for me. Though several times I grew impatient, I knew I had to wait for the process to complete. It felt like eternity, like the invaders and the adversary would no longer be there by the time I was ready to emerge from the crystal glade. I would be very disappointed if I weren't the one to destroy them first. I never left the glade in all that time. It became a cocoon of transformation and nurturing. The energies of the crystals fed me, more filling and substantial than normal food had ever been. Eventually, their energy became all I needed to survive. I spent time ciphering knowledge from Twiz, and sometimes the other spirits. They didn't speak with me like she did. They weren't meant for me. They were afraid of me. Still, I knew they weren't the only spirits. Though I never saw them, my senses began to pick up on their energies. Energies that were twisted by dark emotions. While I could guess what it was I felt, I eventually asked Twist. I needed her cooperation for this to work. "What is the place hidden beyond the glade?" I asked. Predictably, Twist responded, "That should not be your concern." "Oh, I'm not concerned," I told her with a teasing smile. "I'm just curious." "It is a dark curiosity to have." "Then it's fitting for me, don't you think?" I'd started to adopt a more witty, charming slant to my conversation. It was one I was particularly proud of, considering where I'd come from. Humor wasn't well understood when you're a soldier slave. Twist didn't find my statement witty or charming. Her silent frown spoke her disapproval. But we were getting off topic. "So, what is it?" I prodded. I wouldn't back down this time. "It's not a place for any of us," she attempted to evade again. "Those are dark spirits, aren't they?" This inaccuracy got her to talk, finally. "They are not dark spirits." "But they are like you." "They were." Her expression turned mournful. I almost felt ashamed of myself, and yet I pressed on as if I didn't know where this would lead. "Were?" "Remember when you asked what happened to the spirits who never find their person?" "Yes." Her eyes flickered silently in the direction of my curiosity. It confirmed everything I'd guessed, but I wanted her to put a name to it if it had one. "They become..." Twist had trouble speaking the words. "They become part of the Flames of Bedlam." I was slightly taken aback. I'd heard of that before, spoken in old legends, but I needed clarification. "What does that mean?" "They never fulfill what they were meant to become. They turned imbalanced. The chaos consumes them." She spoke quickly, as if afraid to even talk about it, but then she added, "It is part of our duty to see that this is never released upon the world." I presented a dark frown of my own. "What would happen if it was?" She shook her head. "Chaos, when mixed with anger and desire, only consumes, only destroys. It knows nothing else." This was exactly what I'd been hoping for. Twist was reluctant to take me to the place beyond the glade, but I'd been working extra hard at earning her trust. I'd not asked her about the Flames of Bedlam anymore, and I tried to make myself appear as upright and concerned about things as she was. I even laid off my wit. So when I asked to go to the dark place, and I told her it was to better understand our duty, the one where we protect the world from the Flames of Bedlam, she must have believed me, or if she didn't believe me, she wanted to so much that she fooled herself. This is a part of my story that I'm not particularly proud of. Maybe in retrospect, I would have done things differently. However, despite Twist's efforts to show me a balanced path of harmony and justice, the hunger and rage in me had grown monstrous. I'd had a taste of power and manipulation. I was even manipulating her. Yes, not my finest moment. But I'll not gloss over the truth either. She brought me to the Flames of Bedlam. I could see the horror and fear written in the movement of her form. She looked at the hungry, dark flames of twisted energy the way I used to look at my own reflection, like it was some terrible thing, yet something to be pitied. I stepped closer than she dared. In my mind, I could see them boiling through the flame, spirits without their people, and all that was left of the dead, all that was left of the broken, all who suffered in life and found no peace in death, the chaos that hummed temptation in my mind. I knew this power just as much as I knew creation. Twist was a balance of both. My test, I realized, was to choose between them. I reached towards the flame, and it responded eagerly. Like a blade, it only wanted a hand to wield it. But this blade could give me power beyond even the invaders. Power to lay low the adversary. I would meet their cruelty with more cruelty, and I would revel in their pain. "No," I heard Twist gasp as she realized my intentions. "Please." I couldn't explain this to her. I couldn't tell her why. There were no words to describe what my life had been, what my people had been through. "I must," was all I could tell her. Then I embraced the flames of Bedlam. I expected the fire to burn. That's what fire does, after all. I expected the chaos to well within me, maybe even consume me. But I didn't expect what happened next. Twist. She was tiny now, tiny and white next to the immense fury of chaos that stirred to my command. She stood unwavering before it. She put herself between it and me. As the flames wrapped around us, she was the one who drew it in, still protecting me. She was the one who fought to balance the overwhelming rage and pain. Her power was so small, too small. Bedlam began to take her instead. I remembered the shocked feeling of mute, sick horror that filled me as I watched. Maybe just for a second, I was jolted to my senses enough to understand what I'd done. To her, to myself, to this world that waited my cruel coming. Her once gentle energies suddenly burned blood red, seared through with the chaos until her form turned pitch black. In my mind, I heard her piteous cries of pain and fear as they mutated into something terrible, something monstrous. Whatever Twist was, her awareness, her spirit, I watched as my guide burned to nothing. I watched as she transformed with the awful power that I unleashed. When she was gone, power and flames began to fill me. Flashback 5, Bahamut. Time, a year ago. Location, the Glade and the Invader Stronghold. The power washed through me. I took it all in, starving for it, needing it. It was glorious, so very glorious. I was drunk with it, but I still couldn't get enough. I felt so vast. I could see so much. I could sense everything. And it all belonged to me. Twist and her sacrifice were instantly forgotten. There was no sorrow for the one who brought me such delight. That's what she would have wanted, right? To see me happy, to see me rise to power, for me to bring justice down upon those who wronged my clan, to destroy the invaders who left spirits without people, those who made the Flames of Bedlam to begin with. Ah, yes, this was the very thing I was meant to do. Perhaps she just didn't see that. I wish she'd understood. I couldn't contain the power. My person form, the form I worked so hard to create, it was burning away. I saw the darkness seeping out from beneath my cracking skin. As the flames burned, it felt so wondrous. I knew that I would soon transform into what my legacy intended. My greatest gift was yet to come. Soon, soon. I must be sure that they saw. I wanted them to watch their death unfold before their eyes. Just like that, I found myself within the invader home city, far beyond the fortified gates, a place I'd never seen before. I didn't wonder how I got there. I just delighted knowing what was about to happen. That something vast within me was trying to get out and would bring the death flame with it. I saw them through blood-tinted eyes, the invaders. Only within their town, they didn't look like the invaders that I knew. No, they were not the huge mechanical things I used to believe. Were those just vehicles? Did the ones I saw before ride in machines? These invaders look like people. Before I could consider the complications of this revelation, the power within me became too much. My form exploded into fury and darkness. "Bahamut!" they cried as they fled. In their language, it was a word that meant a vast, terrible beast. Finally, I was given a proper name. My wings unfurled, taking many blocks worth of structures as they did. My flame melted rubble and invaders without prejudice. It was so much hotter than normal flame. My fury rained down meteors. My roar crumbled everything before me. My tail laid waste to anything I might have missed behind me. Oh, I was vast. Oh, I was terrible. I savored the destruction. I had mercy for nothing. And nothing was left of the invader city when I was done. But this was just the beginning. Once I was content with the destruction, I tested my new wings. Flying came naturally to me, maybe because it was something natural for Twiz. I didn't want to think about her, about the possibility that I'd taken on some sort of twisted form that she once was. But when I finally landed in a place far away from everything, I hunted down a pool large enough to see my reflection. My fears were confirmed. I looked upon an image that was so much like Twiz, but so different. This creature, the monster before me, was covered with dark scale and bore sharp spikes, with dangerous fangs and claws. There was nothing soft or gentle about the beast I'd become. But I could still recognize that my form was like hers once was. Like her, I was now named Bahamut. I wanted them to know that name. I wanted that name to spread and cause both invaders and adversary to shake with fear. I wanted them to know it meant their death. I would make this happen without mercy. But at that moment, I lashed at my own reflection with one vast claw, deforming the pool with my blow. Once again, I had a face that disgusted me. I found very early on that I somehow kept the ability to shift back into my person form. Sometimes I wonder if that was the last gift that Twist left to me. I know that without this form, something to remind me of what it meant to struggle as a person, I would have had no hope of redemption at all. Not like I've actually redeemed myself, but I digress. What did I need my person form for? I hear you ask. Good question. As much as I savored the destruction of my enemies, it took a lot out of me. Already, the second transformation I assumed was not as large and powerful as my initial attack. I really didn't have much information about what limitations I had, or how long I had before chaos ate my mind and soul, so I determined that it was time to expand my own numbers. Not every soldier-slave the invaders held captive was like me. Not all could embrace the gifts of the creature spirits and find their transformation. But those who could, I could sense. And so I hunted them, and I took them back to the Crystal Glade. There they would transform. There they would become the servants of Bahamut. I knew how to craft forms. The flames within me weren't too choosy when it came to which hand wielded the blade. Between my will and chaos, I began to build my army, one beast at a time. None of them matched my majesty, but they all had scales and wings and claws like mine. One day in the future, these creatures, including myself, would be known as dragons. So, you know all those stories that call me the first dragon, the first sire, the Dragon King, the Hollowed Father. Yeah, like a lot of stories, those were full of bunk. The dawning of dragons in our world was not a thing of light and beauty. In fact, a lot of the first dragons were so unstable and so chaotic that I couldn't keep them under my control. They became the first wild dragons, the bad dragons, if you'd like. I guess that's the price I pay for forcing things beyond their natural boundaries. It never occurred to me back then that our clan should have been made of a variety of beasts like the ones that exist today. I wanted dragons, I needed a dragon army, I got my army, for better or worse. Chapter 1:1 Fateful Meeting. I didn't know people like these existed in our world. All I'd known was the downtrodden captives that my people had become, the invaders, who turned out to be people and machines, and the adversaries, who were also people but killing curs. These people were new to me. They smelt nothing like the clans or the invaders. They smelt of wood smoke, forests, and freedom. And while they walked with apprehension, watching the tree line for danger, they were unmarred by the scars and wounds of war. I could sense their spirit still within them, pure and unbroken. It made me hungry. I forced my mind on the bigger thing at hand. These people, though they weren't captives of the invaders, were like me. They were like our clan. They had creature spirits waiting for them in the glade. They could become my servants. I pondered what it would be like to have servants who weren't broken by the rages of battle and servitude. What were people like when they only knew freedom and forests and wood fires? Would they make better, more spirited beasts? Or would they be harder to control? No matter. I knew the chaos controlled everything in the end. Perhaps it was even controlling me right then. Just as long as the enemy knew my misery, I was content to allow it to chew away at my body insanity. My booted foot came down heavily on an extra loud twig. Yeah, you know that snap branch cliche? It happened to me right there, right now. As I was stalking these people and wondering how their spirits would taste, what did I ever do to deserve that? The group of people stopped, instantly on alert. They circled, the tougher ones standing on the outside, the younger ones protected within. The one at the head of the group pulled a light blade from his side. I'd never seen such a weapon before. It was marvelous. I decided that I simply must have it. And them. "Greetings, travelers." I welcomed them as I stepped out of the tree line. I made sure that my cloak well hid my strange fin ears, and forced my eager stride into a more casual walk. "I apologize if I startled you." They looked at me as if I'd grown a second head. A two-headed beast. Now, that's actually a good idea. The man with the shiny weapon lowered it a bit, his face awash with puzzlement. His armor was in piecemeal parts, though he didn't look fully like a warrior to my trained eyes. He wore a thick blue band around his forehead, half hidden by his strangely colored hair. I knew enough about things to recognize a leader's mark. Whatever this clan was, he was the head of it. "Greetings, friend." He cast my salutations back at me, his voice overly friendly from the get-go. If he was being sarcastic, I couldn't tell. "We are just passing through and mean no harm." "Passing through?" I gave a soft snort, motioning with both hands. "This territory? This is not a place to pass through, friend." I stressed that last word to let him know the ball was in his court. "Really?" the man mused, tilting his head in a way that indicated this was a common habit of his. "That's disappointing, and we've heard such good things about the freedom effort happening here too." "Freedom effort?" "Haven't you heard? Someone, or rather something, has been clearing out the invaders in this area," he told me. A smile of self-satisfaction lit my face. Oh, yes, I've heard all about it. I'm sure you have. He gripped the blade just a little tighter as he added, Bahamut. I tried not to look surprised. After all, was it so unusual that my name should spread far and wide, even to people outside of my battles? Well, aren't you the clever one? My smile must have turned predatory, betraying me. He remained unruffled. I'd like to think so, yes. A woman at the man's elbow whispered sharply to him as she realized their situation. Levi, be careful. Levi, so he had a name. Yes, Levi, I murmured mockingly, casually advancing with a widening grin. Do be careful. Or what? The man asked, continuing to look calm. Would you like to know? Yeah, actually, Levi responded, tone remaining good-natured. We've been looking for you everywhere. It was my turn to be taken aback. For me? Who would be crazy enough to actually seek me out? Come now, let's cut straight to it, he motioned with his blade as he said it. It was almost a pun. Almost. Then he crept closer and lowered his voice. His eyes peered into mine. I noticed they were abnormally blue. I know what you are. I know what we are. Is it really so difficult to figure out why we are here? You are seeking the glade, I heard myself murmur without thinking. The glade, Levi repeated with much interest. So it does exist. It even has a name. Names were important to him, like they were to me. Yes, it does exist. I tried to cover my wicked delight. Of these people, almost all of them bore the mark of the creature spirits. My army would grow quite a bit should they follow me to the glade. Would you like to see it? I was terrible at covering up my true intentions. The woman behind Levi spoke his name again in a tone of warning. Her eyes never left my face. She was no fool. Levi didn't respond to her. Instead, he dipped his head politely to me. Yes, I would love to see it. Then I shall take you there, I told him, wasting no time. He paused, pulling the rug out from under my momentum. After... I lowered my brows, reining in my frustration. After what? It's been a long day on the road, friend, Levi responded, leaning back in a way that imitated my own fake casual stance. I assume the glade's not going anywhere, and we have many hungry mouths to feed. I glowered at that, my gaze falling on the children who still hid behind the armed adults. It'll be night soon. It's best for us to set up camp, he reasoned. Then with one arched eyebrow he added, Why don't you join us? What? I did a poor job of hiding my surprise. Warm fire, fresh meat to cook. Some of the best cooks this side of the forest, I promise. Levi flashed an impish grin. I didn't know how to answer. I was being invited to supper. I'd never been invited to supper before. What should I say? He cut me off. It's no trouble, really. Then he did something I responded to very poorly. He reached out and took me by the arm, touched me. I recoiled from him with a vicious hiss. I must have looked and sounded terrifying because the children made frightened sounds as they stared at me in horror. I felt the beast rising up in me, felt the desire to loom over them all and show them what I really was and make my demands known. Then Levi said my name, Bahamut. I don't know why. Something about that stopped me cold. His gaze met mine, unflinching, despite the fact he was almost a head shorter than I. There was nothing forceful or intimidating about him, just a presence, an undeniable presence that I still can't find words to describe. That's when I realized why he was their leader. Come share our fire, he invited again, unruffled by my poor behavior. Levi, the woman behind him warned again. This time, he turned to her with a frown. I've got this. She pursed her lips, but didn't protest further. He turned back to me. So, what do you say? I still didn't know the proper answer. I just said, all right. Chapter 1-2. Around the Campfire. I knew very quickly that I'd made a mistake in taking up Levi's offer. I should have just done what I wanted from the start. Instead, I had agreed to participate in a social situation that was completely foreign to me. It was so awkward. I sat there, a tall pillar of darkness, so out of place in the middle of the light and sound of these people. At first, they avoided me, walking wide of my perch, as if I was some plague-stricken creature. But as the evening passed, and I didn't evolve into whatever monster they expected, they gradually began to accept and discard my presence altogether. Such couldn't be said about their leader, Levi. He was a presence that always made itself known. It was bright, almost shimmering with good nature, and terribly infectious. I didn't know what he was or what made him this way, but it was difficult for me not to watch and observe him all night long. They called him Chief, which I suppose is another form of king or leader. On first glance, he hardly fit the image that one would have of a chief. And yet, the more time you watched him, something about Levi didn't just fill that position, but exceeded it well beyond that. Maybe it was so awkward and strange because this was the first time I'd witnessed true warmth and closeness between people. Call me sappy, but when I saw what these people had, I kind of wanted it. I just needed to figure out how to take it. I like your sword, I told Levi as the scent of cooking food clouded the camp and filled my senses. Oh, this old thing, he responded, casually drawing it from its sheath. I watched how the light shone over the burnished blade. Our blades had been old, rusted, clunky, and heavily made. This one would sing through the air as it moved, I imagined. This made me desire it all the more. Give it to me, I commanded. Levi's eyebrows lifted, and he gave his scraggly facial hair an idle scratch. He took his time before he asked, Why? Because I want it. It was the most obvious and uncomplicated thing to understand. The man just laughed softly and shook his head. You're used to that, aren't you? What? Getting what you want when you want it. And why not? Levi rocked back on his heels and sheathed his blade, making a show of denying me my treasure. The better question is, why? I must have looked quite angry in the moment, pondering all the terrible things I should do to this little creature who dared deny my demands. He broke in quickly, not letting me stew. Have these desires really consumed you so much? The man asked. I don't follow what you mean, I said. But I did know what he meant. Levi wasn't fooled. His gentle laugh rippled over his words. I've heard the dragons ache something fierce for shiny things, but I expected the king of dragons to be beyond that. The what of what? I furrowed my brows at him. Oh, haven't you heard? That's what they've taken to calling you. Who? He laughed again. Pretty much everyone. I was flustered. I had a name, perhaps a title, and I didn't even know about it. What does it mean? Obviously, Levi's tone was droll. You are the king of dragons, the first dragon, the high destroyer, the terror flame. With each new title, I felt a little spark of pride and flattery grow within my chest. That's when I thought to question the legitimacy of his words. They call me all those things? All right, so maybe I made a few of them up. It was my turn to imitate his droll look. I was learning so many mannerisms from his extremely expressive nature. But they do call you the King of Dragons, Levi confirmed. I was silent for a moment. Then I asked, trying not to sound too ridiculous, Is it bad if I inquire what exactly is a dragon? I couldn't remember the last time I'd eaten real food. Not that any of the slop that the invaders served their soldier slaves could be considered real food. It'd just been so long since I'd craved or consumed anything except for the earth energies of the crystals. I wasn't even sure I could eat. Levi must have seen my dubious expression as I looked at the food on my plate and misread it. "It's not poisoned or anything, you know," he informed me. Then, as if to prove it, he took his eating utensil and shoveled some of the food from my plate into his mouth. I growled a bit at this. I didn't know if I wanted this food, but it was mine. It wasn't his to take. To prove it, I responded by taking a vicious bite from the thin slab of meat on my plate. The taste of it was unlike anything I'd ever consumed before. I was captivated by my overwhelming senses and just sat there savoring it, juices trickling down my chin. Though I didn't require food anymore, eating a meal of this quality was certainly a pleasurable experience that I'd been missing out on. "Hey," Levi finally spoke, snapping me out of it. He pointed to his own chin with a jovial glint in his eyes. "You got something on your face right there." I paused in my food reveling to see everyone else watching me with a mixture of unreadable expressions. I must have looked so much like an animal to them. Here, a woman handed me a knife. It was the same woman who called Levi by his name rather than his title. Cutting it makes it a little easier to swallow. It wasn't the first time one of the other clan members had spoken to me. Though I felt as if I was being gently mocked, I swallowed my ire and took the knife silently. Have I really become so much of this dragon and remained so little of my former self? Did I want to remain any of my former self? That broken, miserable little creature that was too weak to fight for freedom? Like these pitiful little people who didn't know the potential of the greatness waiting inside them. I wiped my chin with a provided cloth and set about figuring out how to carve my meat. Levi's gaze was upon me. When my eyes met his, that's when I realized what I'd been seeing all along. This man knew exactly the potential of greatness that was hidden within him. He did not fear it. He sought to embrace it. He would become mighty, and I had to find a means to contain and control that. I'd never seen an instrument before, nor heard this thing that they called music. It mystified me that a strange wooden object with strings could produce such pleasing sounds. When blended with drumming and the voices of singing people, it was something that soothed the inner flames, even my own. Levi played the instrument well and with confidence. His wasn't the most beautiful voice there that night, but it was pleasant enough. I could see the joy and passion he put into his music, and though I wanted to fully enjoy it, something within me just felt cold and jealous. I wanted to make such a lovely sound. I wanted to know what that kind of joy felt like. On the edge of the fire, I heard laughter among the singing. People were dancing. Men and women held hands and spun each other around. Children imitated the adults, but that mostly devolved into childish running amok. The faster the music played, the more they danced. The more they danced, the wider Levi's smile became. And the further away from it all that I felt, I was so different from these creatures. These weak but happy, blessed creatures. I suddenly hated it. Chapter 1-3 Leviathan. The next day, I guided the group to the glade. Such was the growing expectation within me that I couldn't help lick my lips in anticipation of what great additions these creatures would make to my army. Levi didn't appear to sense my excitement. However, the woman, I learned her name was Sura, kept a very close watch on me and missed nothing. Her hand strayed down to the blade at her side from time to time. I don't think she even realized she was doing this. I'd also learned that this woman was Levi's potential choice of mates. When I wondered aloud at why they had no offspring yet, Levi mustered a surprised look and told me it wasn't that serious yet. I was still trying to figure out what that meant when we arrived at the glade. Levi was the first person to ever respond to the glade with something other than ignorant fear. I could tell as we drew closer that he heard the call of the spirits the way that I did once long ago. He heard and he was ready to respond. Perhaps was even more ready than I'd been. This would make for an interesting situation, but it was one, I knew, that could become dangerous if I didn't overtake Levi with the flames as early as possible. He was stronger than the ones who came before him. More clever, too. "You don't have to do this," I heard Sura trying to dissuade him. There was no sense in that. He was a man with one willful purpose. Levi reached out and placed his palm along the side of her face. His eyes were soft, but he was firm in his response. "I do. I'm so close now. I must." "What if you don't come back?" her voice quavered. "I will," he reassured her. "What if you come back and you're not you?" That was a true possibility. He just reassured her again. That's not going to happen. He sounded so certain. "Don't worry, Sura," I wanted to say to her. "You'll be following him in there soon enough." In the gathering crystal light, I watched as Levi pulled her close to him. Then their lips connected in a weird but not unpleasant display of affection. I almost felt embarrassed for them. Once that was over with, Levi signaled to me that he was ready. It took him long enough. As we entered the glade, something happened that I'd never seen before. When I first came there, only one spirit dared to approach me, my own. When I brought others there, sometimes it took hours before spirits came out of hiding to claim its person. They were always uncertain, befuddled, and hesitant. They were always terrified of me. But when Levi stepped in, the glade, for lack of better words, came to life. All the spirits made themselves known. All of them. I didn't even realize there were so many. They didn't seem to care that I was there, only that Levi had arrived. Though I thought that the spirits were predestined for one person and only one, it felt as if all of them wished to connect with Levi, to teach and guide him, to lift him to whatever glory that awaited. My face grew dark. This had not happened for me. Levi didn't see my expression. He was too caught up in the wonder of the glade and the spirits there. He reached out and welcomed to each of the spirits as if testing, feeling, looking for the special one that matched. He knew what he was looking for. I waited, expecting him time and again to stop before one of the larger, more formed shapes that shifted across the glade. Any of them would have chosen him. Any of them would have gladly given him power beyond measure. The spirit he walked to was one who had not come out to greet him at all. It was small and shy and not at all that glorious. It would have been my last choice. But when Levi reached his hand towards it, something happened. Something that began to transform them both. The light! In all the transformations I'd forced in the glade, none had resounded like this. What had appeared to be a tiny, fragile spirit began to unfold. Long and slender, it moved with the grace of waves, a gentle blue energy surrounding it as it took a serpentine shape. It kept growing, longer and longer, as if it had no end. The energies calmly wrapping around Levi as he watched with widening eyes. I recognized the shape. It was a shape similar to what I forced all transformations into, that of a dragon. I felt a thrill of shock rush through me. This was the first time someone else was already a dragon without my influence. This needed no influence from me. This transformation was already happening. Just that fast, that instant. It didn't take the countless hours for Levi to learn and embrace and shape himself. He was already there. The world around me rippled as the spirit energies engulfed Levi. His form shivered and became light. Then, a colossal dragon hovered in the glade, looming huge over me. Leviathan. I knew this creature's name by instinct, perhaps in the same way he'd known mine when we first met. This was no ordinary dragon, not like the ones I forced into serpent shape. Similar to the spirit he chose, this dragon was long, graceful, and slender. His soft hide reflected like light on water, a rainbow of shifting hues between purples, blues, and greens. Long whiskers and fins flowed around him, shifting in the elements that bent to his will. I hate to admit that in those first moments, I felt intimidated. But that moment passed quickly. I turned my attention instantly to drawing the Flames of Bedlam around me. Was I too late to turn him, to bring him under my control? I had to try. I needed this monster in my forces. When I released the flames, seeking to twist this beast's will to my own, something happened that I'd never forget. Leviathan's eyes focused on me sharply, knowingly. The dragon's maw opened wide. I felt a tide of water drawing into him, even though there was no pool here to draw from. My gaze locked with his, flames bristling around me, ready to release. The dragon's mouth clamped shut, twisting into something that looked almost comical. And with great precision, he spat a stream of shivering water from between his pursed lips into my flame. Much to my absolute mortification, it was extinguished. I stumbled back, shaken. This does not happen. No one simply puts out the Flames of Bedlam. My face twisted with a rare look of horror as the shadow of Leviathan fell over me. I felt his vastness looming above. I sensed the pure and unfettered power that gathered around him. I slowly looked up, struggling to wash the fear from my face. I forced myself to glare at him defiantly. I knew what Leviathan had come for now. He'd come for my head. He'd come to take my title. He would challenge me for all that I'd... Another squirt of water knocked me on my hindquarters, cutting off my train of thought. I growled in frustration, picking myself up off the ground. I could see Leviathan watching me from above. His maw was open and twisted into what could only be outright laughter. Then he winked at me. You're going to have to do a lot better than that, Bahamut. He was mocking me. That worthless fish breath water snake? Fury let the ire within me. I heard myself roar as shadow and flame drew my own dragon transformation. Without hesitation, I launched, maw wide as I thundered down upon the Tidemaker. Chapter 1-4 Mercy. When I closed my maw around Leviathan's jugular, I braced myself for the warm, pleasant taste of blood. It was something that didn't come. Instead, I got a mouthful of salty seawater. My head jerked back in confusion. Leviathan simply hovered there, only a few yards away, that infernal grin pasted to his fish-lipped snout. I lunged again, and again, as I snapped, I got nothing but a mouthful of water. It was as if this beast was not flesh and bone at all. I roared in frustration, resorting to brute force, lashing and swinging wildly at him. Nothing connected. He was either too fast or simply dissolved into nothing the moment I struck. "Fight me, fiend!" I bellowed in mounting rage. I had had enough of his trickery. "If you insist," he said smoothly. Apparently, he was tired of this game too. I heard a sound, a whip crack of lightning, and felt searing pain as Leviathan's barbed tail lashed from nowhere to strike me straight between the eyes. It left me dazed and staggering. I fought to keep my senses, but the blow was so precise, as if he knew exactly the right spot to down a dragon. My vision swam, and I felt myself sinking into senseless darkness. I knew this was my end. I awoke to the cliché of water splashing on my face. Talk about adding insult to injury. The water did its job, however, and I sat bolt upright, gasping like a dying fish. My whole system was in shock. I didn't know what was causing it. Silence pressed around me. I felt like I'd been gutted and left out in the sun to die. Surprisingly, I was still alive. After everything I'd just done. After facing, and I grudgingly admit, being bested by that beastly sea serpent. Somehow I woke again. The memory of my unexpected loss stung. My head still throbbed from the thrashing I'd taken. Groggy, I touched my forehead with one hand, feeling at the huge tender spot. Then I hissed as it stung. "You should probably leave that be," a familiar voice told me. Still disoriented, I fought to force my vision into focus. I didn't need to see him. I could smell him. His scent had changed from forest and wood smoke to sea salt and ocean winds. I readied myself to the best of my ability. Leviathan was near. "Stay calm," he said. It sounded like he wanted to add a trickle of laughter to the words, but they came out forced instead. When my vision finally served me again, I saw him sitting there, just plain Levi, back in his person form. He sat on a log next to a low-burning campfire, cooking something on a spit. We were alone. I was alive. I'd also returned to my person form, but there was something unnatural and pressured about it. That's when I first took note of the solid metal cuffs on both of my wrists. Just looking at them turned my stomach, like they were actively trying to turn my attention off of them. "You didn't give us much of a choice in the matter," Levi told me as he prodded the embers with a stick. "You're a blasted wild one, aren't you?" "Choice?" I echoed. My voice was raw in my throat, raspy. He motioned to my cuffs. "We usually save those for those who turn." "Turn?" I bared my teeth at him. "Sometimes it brings them back to their senses. I think it's because it cuts them off from the energies, the influences," he explained. "Not sure it'll help you much. You're in pretty deep." I realized then why everything was so still, so silent, why things felt so strange. It was something the cuffs were doing to me. I couldn't feel the flames anymore. I was rendered completely without my power, without my dragon. I was at his mercy. Like a cornered animal, I tried to find a way out of the trap. Bahamut would be no one's captive. I could escape and find a way back to... Where would I go? If the invaders or adversary found me like this, they would certainly kill me on sight. If I returned to my army of writhing mass of monsters and beasts that I created, I would fear no better. If I returned to the glade, the spirits hated me, but perhaps I could find some leftover chaos willing to assist my attempt. Levi finished cooking the meal and began chewing the meat right off the stick. His unnatural blue eyes slid over to me as if he could hear my thoughts. Perhaps he could. "Don't think about it," he warned me gently. "Think about what?" I grimaced. "I know thinking isn't your strong suit, but running away would only make things worse." Then Levi extended a second stick to me. There was cooked meat on the end. I turned away from it. I was starving, but not for physical food. "Come on," he encouraged. "Don't be that way." "Oh, sure, you can say that. You're not the one who got brained by your beastly tail," I snapped. I was humiliated about this whole thing, so I decided I might as well complain as loudly as possible about it. Levi took another bite. "If I recall, you're the one who asked for it." "I didn't mean it in a literal sense." After trying to rip my throat out, I spread my hands. "It was self-defense. I didn't expect you to be a... He watched me closely, not offering verbal help. I lowered my arms and furrowed my brow, voice more grave than I meant it to be. What are you? For the first time, I saw Levi look less than confident about his situation in life. In fact, he looked shaken, haunted. He turned away with a murmur. I don't know. Eventually, I took the meat from him. Levi was a good cook. Did I expect anything less from Mr. Perfect? And the meal was delicious, but it didn't fill the pit of hunger that grew and grew within me. That hungered for crystals and their earth energies. Conversation was awkward. Levi tried to maintain his cheerful outlook, but sooner or later, there were things we both had to hash out. This was all just his roundabout way to soften it or avoid it. I disliked avoidance. Why didn't you kill me? I dropped the meteor in the middle of whatever sentence he was speaking. I wasn't paying attention to his trite words anyhow. Levi froze, taking in a sharp breath. He knew this was coming. I could see him struggle to find an answer. Perhaps he wasn't so perfect when he was put on the spot. It was nice to see him squirm a little. Finally, he lowered his head, his hair falling into his eyes. Aside from the pair of thin dragon ears he had acquired after his transformation, his hair had also changed color. It reflected strangely, depending on how the light hit it. Sometimes it looked purple, sometimes a bit more blue. There were hints of gradient greens, like the hide of the dragon he'd become. I was sent here to stop you. His voice was grim, more serious than I'd ever heard before. I snorted at that thought until I remembered my current cuff situation. When he didn't offer any other information, I prodded, Well, that certainly raises a lot of questions. Yes, I know. I figured it would. I arched an eyebrow. Then why cause yourself trouble and tell me the truth? Levi leaned back against a tree, propping his feet up. He was uncomfortable, but doing everything he could to not let that show outwardly. Because there are some things in life that you can spin yarns about, and some things that are too important to fake. Well, considering you beat me over the head and chained me up, I noted with a flare of dramatics, it's only fair you tell me why. This actually helped to put him at ease. He saw that though I was wounded and captive, I had some sense of humor to me still. I was quickly learning how to get what I wanted out of him. Says the guy who tried to throw me to the Flames of Bedlam and wrest me under his control, Levi pointed out. Well, there is that, I couldn't argue. He sighed and combed his fingers through his hair, gathering his thoughts. All right, let me try to explain. Chapter 1-5. The Reason Why. I wasn't there when the invaders first appeared in our land, obviously. Levi chuckled to himself, as if to laugh something unpleasant off. I'm a freak, but I'm not that much of a freak. I filed this statement away for later. So, while I don't have the particulars, I do know that the invaders who came and trashed the home of our ancestors didn't manage to capture all of our clan. Again, I don't know all the stories, I just know that here and now, there's a group of us who live in hiding. Now, this was very interesting news, and it explained a lot. Why there was a group of people who I sensed were like myself, yet were not captives. I suppose I should have worked through the logic of all this myself before now, but I was too busy trying to figure out how to make those people serve me. Seeing that I was not interrupting his story, Levi just continued. We may not be captives of the invaders, as I assume you were, but we have our own problems. Namely, generations of being disconnected from our natural state, or what I've been told is our natural state. It's tearing our people apart. I grunted with interest. Meaning? People just start losing it. They succumb to what we call the longing. His face was grim as he tried to put it to words. They just leave or turn. Turn? They go wild. It's like an unexplained madness. Levi squinted, peering into my face. There's something in our people that drives us. We want, we need to fulfill, to become. You hear the spirits call, I said simply, putting into words what he could not. His eyes lit up. We had something in common. Yes, that, exactly. Then you... Of course. How do you think I found the glade to begin with? Makes sense, Levi mused to himself. So what about those who go wild? I nudged him back on track. I can only assume they hear the call and leave to find the glade. We can't stop them. We've tried. Sadness lowered his gaze. He's had personal connections to this. We never see them again. With all the battles and invaders that used to crawl around this area, I suspect not. That changed. Levi glanced back up at me. We heard stories of the dragons. They became rumors that could only mean someone had found our sacred ancestral land. Someone had unlocked its secrets, and someone had cleared the way to return to it. I put the pieces together in a way that seemed to fit. So, you heard about me, and you brought your people back here to find the glade and reclaim your legacy. Well, his frown told me it was more complicated than that. Yes and no. We monitored everything we could, found all the information about Bahamut we could find, and when all was weighed and balanced, the elders weren't happy. They decided to intervene, Levi told me. Wait, I interrupted him. I thought you were the leader, the chief. He laughed lightly. I call the shots in some ways for some things, but our elders know what's best for the clan as a whole. He stopped, his silence growing heavy. I could see the torn apprehension creasing his brow. But, I prompted him to speak his concern. They sent me to stop you. Levi picked his words carefully. To kill me. He opened his mouth, then closed it. It looked like it physically hurt him to agree. Yes, I think that's what they had in mind. But you didn't, I reminded him. When I came here, after the stories I'd heard, all the cities you destroyed, the people you killed, so much destruction. I was sure they were right. He squinted, looking at me for a long moment. Then I actually saw you. Saw what you are. Sensed what's driving you. I couldn't do anything but pity you. I curled my lips back in displeasure and humiliation. I was not a thing to be pitied. He was ready for this. I know that's too low a blow for your pride, but if you want the truth, there it is. You can keep your pity, I spat at him. I am the bringer of the flame. I will consume until there's nothing left of those who... I stopped, losing steam in mid-threat. Not only was Levi not buying it, he was looking at me like this was the dumbest thing he'd ever heard. Are you done? He asked, tilting his head. No, I huffed, knowing I sounded like a child. But what's the point? The point is, he prodded me with one of his food sticks. Killing your problem is not always the best way to solve it. It's worked for me. And you see where that's got you now. Only because you and your busybody elders decided to shove into things, I had everything under control, I argued. No, he told me flatly, you didn't. Least of all, yourself. I scowled, but it didn't bother him. Your elders must have a lot of confidence in your ability to take me down, I scoffed. Did they know you were a dragon? This was the topic that made him really uncomfortable. For all his show of confidence going into the glade, I think the transformation shook Levi up as much as it had me. I don't know, he answered me honestly. I suppose they had an idea. Or maybe they were just at a loss of what to do. Should you? Levi seemed ashamed as he admitted, I felt the longing. I fought it for as long as I could, but it was very, very strong within me. It was only a time before I turned or left. I would be no good to anyone in my clan if I went wild. You act like that's a crime. I should have been strong enough to handle it. I shrugged. That's life, isn't it? He didn't respond. This was really eating at him. I changed the subject slightly. So does that mean the rest of the people in your group also... Levi nodded slowly. They weren't as bad off as I was, but the signs were there. It's only a matter of time. We knew that the way to the glade was open, more or less, except for Bahamut himself. I wasn't going to stop you, I smirked. No, until you realized I wasn't going to be controlled. I grunted. You know too much. That's about the only thing the elders could give me, information about you, about how to stop you. How touching, I clicked my tongue mockingly. They knew you'd embrace the Flames of Bedlam. They told me what to look for and how to fight it, Levi said. That's why I'm on their hit list then. Well, that's one of the reasons. I mulled over this, summarizing. So you came here, turned into a dragon, stomped my tail, but didn't kill me like you were supposed to. Now what? He shook his head. I'm thinking I take you back with me. What? This was not what I expected to hear. I show the elders what you are. Maybe by then, the disconnect from the flames will be enough to, I don't know, do something. What? I asked again. Levi spread his hands. If they see you, maybe they'll see that we don't have to kill to find peace and... I dismissed him. You did go mad with the longing. Come on, I'm trying to save your life here, he protested. Give me something to work with. I'll give you a hard time. He just sighed. I don't doubt that. Thank you so much for stopping by to listen to the first part of Flames of Bedlam. If you enjoyed this recording, please leave a like, or even better, a comment, and let me know that you'd like to hear more adventures of Bahamut and Levi. I have a good chunk of this story written, and I'm more than willing to keep adding to this tale as long as there's folks who want to listen. Have a good one!